We're in south of France. I've come down a day early before the family arrived by aeroplane, just to try and prep a few spots because it's only going to be early morning sessions, 2 or 3 hours. I'm having to try and adapt my fishing to suit the holiday, which isn't ideal, but you get the best of both worlds. So, bad start, my profile snapped in the heat, so fortunately we've got this little beach tent, so that's where I'm going to be sleeping tonight. This is the second boat, which is going to be attached to the main boat, which is here, and we're going to go out into the water. We're going to moor up, we're going to anchor up should I say, and we're going to attempt to fish from the boat just for a few hours tomorrow morning. We check into the proper campsite tomorrow afternoon, but tomorrow morning put some bait in on the drop off, which drops away from about 1 metre down to about 8, and we're going to see what happens. So I've got in here the new piece of kit, the petrol outboard motor, the electric motor, and then we've got some 2-stroke oil mixed with unleaded petrol, and then if you can see, loads and loads of live system under there. And around here, in amongst all the children's toys, we've got a load of cooked tiger nuts. All of that's going to go in tomorrow, and we're going to leave it 48 hours before we then fish again. Right, let's get those rods sorted. Okay, it's just getting light on Saturday morning. Family arrived today. I've attempted to come out and fish from the boat. Practically, I'm not quite sure whether this is going to work this week. Probably took an hour and a half to get everything in the boat and get sorted. When you've got the 2 motors, you've got the battery, you've got the transducer, you've got a second boat, and you've got the rods, and then 2 bloody great anchors with about 100 metres too much rope. I'm gonna have to work on this. It's obviously the first day, so just trying to get things sorted out really, and just trying to hone things down. Yeah, I wasn't expecting anything. I've put both rods just off the drop off. The lines look frighteningly close together. It was a case of putting the head torch in this boat, and then taking the other boat and dropping the rods, and then coming back, and I've got some Velcro straps, not Velcro, some rucksack type clips on the boat there and there. Two anchors, one at each end, holding it in shape, so at least it's not drifting. The wind's starting to pick up now, but there's certainly no movement of the leads. We're holding relatively firm. It's beautiful sunrise coming. Boats are just on their way out. I've anchored up. You can probably just about see the bottom down there. I've anchored up over the 1 metre deep water, and then out towards that buoy, probably 50 yards to the left, it drops off. I've got that rod in 9 metres, so that rod in 9 metres, and that rod there in about 7.5 to 8. So we're fishing the deeper water. It does go down to about 11, I found, but water level's actually a little bit down compared with last year. But yeah, like I said, I wasn't expecting anything this morning. It's just nice to get out on the water. Got 5 hours sleep, so it's better than normal. A few boats out there now. Don't know if you're going to be able to make them out on that. But anyway, over and out for now. It's 7:52 in the morning. Now the idea is I'll be able to get away with doing an early morning every other morning. But we're going to go with a heavy baiting strategy. Now the main reason for that is that this lake is so big that you can't really expect to just turn up, catch a carp, unless you've put the background work in. And it's even less likely you're going to catch them when you've only got a three hour slot in the morning, or maybe 4 hour if you stretch it a little bit more. So the idea is we're going to go heavy baiting. Last year I came with sacks and sacks of maize and tigers, and probably about 120 kilos of boilies. I have 4 carp in the end, and all the carp came early in the morning. They actually came before first light, within an hour of putting the rods out, and I'm pretty sure it was because they were so tuned in to feeding in this particular area of the lake that they were just waiting for food. Now, we were in a villa last time. This time we're in a campsite purely because we thought the children needed a bit more entertainment than sitting in a villa. We'll probably be back at a villa next year, because staying on the campsite makes this sort of short session carping that much more difficult, because during the hours of darkness from midnight through till 7 AM, the campsite is actually shut. So you have to put your boat and your car outside, which is a little bit dodgy, but obviously you've had a drink in the evening, so you can't put the boat out after you've had a drink. You're only driving at sort of 5 miles an hour around the campsite, but you've got 100 children from all nationalities hacking it around on their mountain bikes and on their scooters. All it would take is for one of them to go into your car, and when you've had a drink, it's just not worth the risk. So the only solution is to put the car and the boat out there earlier on in the day. So anyway, that's just one of the little issues. There's 101 other issues of trying to do this real short session carping with the family. That having a villa is so much easier than being on a campsite. But anyway, we're going to enjoy ourselves whether I'm able to do any fishing or not. Let's get back to the fishing. It's Monday. Having had 2 attempts at setting up the petrol outboard and getting it all on, I've had to sack that idea off. Now there's a marina shop in the local town here, and the plan was I would go there first of all, and I would see if there were any available mooring spots in any of the harbours in this particular section of the lake. It wasn't really surprising that I wasn't able to get a spot. I even offered double the price, but they still wouldn't give me a spot. They're so disciplined on this sort of thing around here. So that kind of ruined the chances of me fishing from the boat, because if I had the petrol outboard all ready to go with the boat, it would be so easy to just put the rods in, jump in the boat and fly off. But when you're actually trying to put the petrol outboard and the electric motor into the small Zodiac, there's a bleep on the rods, it takes a good hour to get it all sorted and get out. The place that I was baiting was about 1.2 kilometres from the bank, so it wasn't the one. The weather's good for it. There's very light winds all week for the first week anyway, and that's perfect for boat fishing, so it was all looking good for it. But because I couldn't get a mooring spot, that's kind of ruled that option out. So we're back fishing from the bank just with the electric motor. It's a lot quicker and it's a lot more efficient than using the big petrol outboard, getting that in and out of the car, filling it with petrol, etc. It wasn't the one for this holiday. So anyway, we gave it a good hit of bait over in the main area, which we're not going to fish, and we gave it a good hit of bait here. We're now going to concentrate here. We're in an arm on the lake, and I'm fishing on a drop off. It goes, I mean, all this water is about 1 metre deep, but then it goes down to about 3, and then you find a ledge, and over the ledge it goes from 3 down to 7 pretty steeply, and I'm fishing in 6 and 7 right at the bottom of that ledge all the way across, and probably baited a line of about 100 metres, yeah, probably about 100 metres across, and I've started off, like I said last year, I was using maize, tigers and boilies, and the maize brought in the bream like you wouldn't believe, and it caused major problems, but it did take a couple of early morning sessions to sort it out. But basically, the longer the hair, the stiffer the hook link, all the way through, including the hair, and big baits was the one. There are poisson cham, this one, and crayfish, and obviously midsummer everything's as active as it's ever going to be. So everything was shrink wrapped, and I ended up having them on huge, great donkey choker bottom baits, with coated braid straight through, and size 2 muggers. So anyway, this year we've sacked off the maize, and we're just fishing tigers and boilies, and the idea was we'll predominantly focus on the tigers in the first half of the week, purely because I don't want to run out of boilies too early, and then we'll start to introduce more and more boilies. I think I probably put about 10 key of boilies and 20 key of tiger across here 2 days ago. I've come back this morning and I've had 2 bream. So the whole idea of it being maize that attracted the bream in wasn't the one, it was the tigers as well. So jumbo tigers, the bream are just mopping them up. Like I said, it was only 2 days ago, and I've had 2 out of the 3 rods that I'm using have had pickups, and all the rods are having knocks. So clearly all the bait has been eaten, but I've got a load of tigers to use up, so we're going to do it again with predominantly tigers today, and we're going to bait the area. I've got 1.5 big buckets full. That's going to go in, and then we're going to come back in 2 days time. Now when I caught them last year, I was able, because the villa was real close to here, I was able to do a round trip. I could get it down to about, it started with it being about 2 hours, and by the end of the holiday I got it down to about a 50-minute round trip to go out and bait the spots. Unfortunately, the campsite's 15 minutes drive away compared with 5 minutes, and the idea, I would give it a big hit of bait 2 days before I fished, and then the evening before I would top it up with between 5 and 10 kilos of boilie, only 24mm live system, and then I would arrive at 4 in the morning and I'd fish till 8. So the rods would be out by about 4:30 to 5, and it would be in that first hour of pitch black that I was getting all the carp, and then the moment it started to get light and the sun started to come up, all the bream would come in, and all rods would get taken out by bream. And I have 4 fish, and all of them came within the first hour of putting the rods out. So this morning, when I got a take within 2 or 3 minutes of the rod going out, I thought it was going to be a carp, but it was a bream, and that's the first bream I've had during the hours of darkness. So I've been doing this long enough now to know that other fish in the swim isn't a good thing, really. Not for me. The odd occasion it is, and the odd lake it is good that you get everything feeding, but in my experience it can actually work against you getting all of those, particularly when you're boating your rods out to 200 metres, and then you get a bream. It's just you have to go back and replace the rods with just a 3 or 4 hour window every other day. That isn't the one. It's just gone 8 o'clock. I've got to go to the supermarket at 9. Over and out for now. Okay, it's Wednesday. It's just getting light. It's about 7:30 in the morning. So I got down here very early, probably about 4 o'clock. Rods have probably been out about 4 hours, and I've not really had any sort of bream action this morning, but haven't had any carp action either. It's such a big piece of water, so the carp could very much be anywhere. and if they're not in this bay, then we're a long way from them. But I got down here on the Friday, so I baited Friday, Saturday, Monday, Saturday, Monday. So it's had 3 big hits of bait, and last night. So it's actually, so I've baited 4 times with buckets and buckets of bait. The carp, I genuinely don't think the carp are around here at the moment. It's an incredible coincidence we've got in that this exact week last year when I was here, Olivier is to my right, and then there's a French angler opposite fishing from a boat. None of us have been here for a year, and he says, Olivier was saying it's the first time he's been back here in a year, and it was also the first time that Tony had been back here from France. He lives in the north of France. He's down also with a family holiday. And we both walked into his swim at exactly the same time as last year. It's a remarkable coincidence. None of us have been in communication with each other. But anyway, it was good to catch up, but unfortunately, God, look at all the swallows out on the water at the moment. It's unbelievable. So anyway, he's been here, he's here until the weekend. Both of them are here until the weekend. I've got an extra week on top of that, but none of them have caught anything. And I did have, oh, look at them all. Can you see them all going across there, all those swallows? So no one's caught anything. Tony hasn't anything and Olivier hasn't anything, so it would suggest that there aren't many carp in the bay at the moment. And I'm uneasy about the situation of those two fishing here full time and me fishing just early mornings, because our baits are relatively close to each other. So all this bait that's going in, they're going to reap the rewards of it purely on the basis that they're here for so many more rod hours. I've got a load of bait with me now, and I'm questioning whether or not I should put it in. If the carp aren't around here, I'm basically just going to be feeding the bream and the crucian carp. They said there's a lot of crucian carp here this year, which is unusual. I never caught a crucian out of here. But anyway, there's not a lot to report, to be honest. Over and out for now. On Saturday morning. I did 2 early morning sessions up in the bay, right at the other end of the lake, long way away from here. There were 2 other anglers in the area. I think I've probably mentioned that several times already. They were fishing full time. Both anglers blanked the entire week. I almost definitely would have blanked if I'd fished up there. So I've come right down the other end of the lake. This is a very shallow compared with the other end, where I was finding 7-8 metres just out in front on the drop off. The most I can find is 3.5 metres. It's very weedy, but there are big areas of clear water in between the weed. God, it's so noisy with these boats. So 2 days ago I gave it a bucket of tigers and probably about 15 kilo 24mm live system. I've given it 48 hours and I've come down with the hope that the bait would be eaten and they'd be looking for some food. Just a couple of line bites this morning, not really a lot at all. Certainly no sign of any jumping carp. I've never seen a carp jump in this lake. But anyway, we're checking out of the campsite today. We've got 1 more week at a villa, which is going to be far easier for me to fish. And we've got my mother coming and brother, so there's going to be good support for the little ones. So it's going to give me much better chance of being able to come down and fish. Anyway, it's like I said, it's just coming up 7:30 now. We've got to check out the campsite in 3 hours. To get back to the car is probably a 10-minute motor in the boat, and then a pack up of the boat, etc. We're looking at an hour. So and once we get back, I've got to pack the car up. So I'm going to have to wind in 10 minutes. It's a beautiful sunrise. There's no wind on the water, but there's no carp about. I'll keep you posted on what I've done. Incidentally, I've baited one other lake. I've baited the lake down the road again with a couple of big buckets of tigers. So that's going to be my next option. I've tried 2 areas. It's not worked. So let's just keep moving about. I'll probably end up back in the bay, but for now, hasn't worked here. We might give it one more early morning here. I'm not going to bait it now. I'll keep you posted. Okay, so the right hand rod is fished out towards the buoy, probably about 15 metres short of that buoy there. Yeah, so 15 metres short of that buoy there. So that's the right hand rod, and that's fished in 7 metres of water. It basically, for the first probably 80 metres out from here, you've got about 2 metres depth and solid weed, Canadian pondweed, up to about a foot under the maybe 2 foot under the surface. It's better than last year. Last year it was to the surface and therefore you had to row across it. It's probably up to about 1.5 foot, 1.5, 2 foot, just below the surface, and then it drops away at 80 metres out or 90 metres out. It drops away into 6 metres of water, where you've got what looks like very light weed on the bottom. It's a pretty reasonable donk down, so I'm happy with it. So I've got at about 100 metres, I've got 2 rods on just over the back of the weed in the 6 metres of water, which I've baited heavily, and then in kind of a diagonal line out to the buoy in the distance, where it goes from 6 and it gradually shelves away to 7, very gradually, that is, probably over the space of 100 metres and I've put a little bit of bait around there as well, just in between the 2 marks. I was planning to use 4 rods, but I came back on the wrong line on one of the rods, so it's relatively tight because to the left and the right the weed goes further out. So 3 rods was sufficient, and I was pretty happy, to be honest, pretty happy with all the drops. You see the wind is coming from the north, it's coming across me. I'm actually near the north end of the lake, so I'm on the back of the wind really, but there is a ripple on the water and these carp won't always follow the wind. But anyway, this spot, we've put a lot of effort into this spot. We've baited it twice now with a big bucket of tigers, and then once with a smattering of tigers and some boilie. So basically had 3 good baits over the course of last week. So when I came down this morning at 1 in the morning, put the rods out, I was actually quite confident of a bite, and I haven't had anything. Very, very quiet. There were basically, I had a few liners at 2 or 3 in the morning, and it's most likely to be a koipu, then it's most likely to be a swan, then it's most likely to be a bream or something, and then least likely, should I say, is for it to be a carp or a catfish, because I think that the line bites are happening much closer in over the where the braid is going over the Canadian pondweed in the shallower water. See the heron go past. We're going to give it one more bait today, just with tiger nuts. I'm not going to waste boilies on it, and the reason I'm not going to do that is purely because there are lots of big catfish in here, so I don't really want to be putting a bed of boilies down because the catfish will come in on it. So it's just tiger nuts. There's the kingfisher. We're just going to bait with, and there's another one. We're just going to bait chasing each other. We're going to bait with tigers, and we're going to give it, it's Monday morning now, so we're going to give it, leave it another couple of days, and we're going to give it Wednesday morning, and tomorrow morning got to start upping the ante now, start putting the body through some heat. We haven't had anything yet, and we've just got a few days to go now, so it's about, what are we on now? Sun's just come up. 7:45 in the morning. So I'm going to put the bait in. Over and out for now. It's Tuesday of week 2. It's just in the start of September now. I've come back to where I started, and there's no shame in admitting that it was the wrong call. Basically, I've continued to bait this area pretty much every day, every opportunity I can, just with boilies now. It's been absolutely primed, but of course on such a big lake it was definitely the wrong call. When you've got 2 French anglers doing a week on here and blanking, I thought I'd give it a few days, so I've given it 3 days. I've given it Saturday, Sunday and Monday since they've left. Thought I'd give it a bit of time, hopefully a few carp to move into the bay. When it's such a big lake, clearly they haven't moved into the bay, and I haven't any action. I really made the wrong call there. I should have been baiting other parts of the lake and fishing them. There aren't any carp about, and I'm going to blank this week. I'm going to blank the holiday. You've got to be realistic about your chances. When you're only fishing relatively short early morning sessions on these sorts of places, you're not giving yourself a decent opportunity. I've been pushing my body to the limit this last 2 weeks. It's you know, it's as good as I can get it from a fishing perspective, without putting too much pressure on other things. I'm sure a lot of you have been in this situation before. Only once a year do I get a chance to come down to these sorts of areas of France and fish. People always say you need 10 days or 2 weeks fishing 24 hours a day to give yourself a decent chance in the on these sorts of venues. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. This holiday it hasn't worked out. I would like to fish tomorrow morning, but I don't think I'm going to be allowed. I don't really want to put too much strain on the situation. We're certainly not going to come back to this area because the carp just aren't about. Anyway, over and out for now. We shall wind in. On the Wednesday night of week 2, pressure's dropped, temperatures dropped, and a big wind picked up, heading straight into one of my pre-baited areas. I just had to get back out there for one last early morning session. Okay, so it's Thursday morning of week 2, and finally we've got one. Tiny little carp, probably one of the smallest ones in here, but I don't really care. Jet black common, probably about 15 pounds, but I'm so happy to have caught one. Got down here about 3 a.m. And the take came at 4 a.m. It's not a blank, it's a success, considering the magnitude of where we're fishing, and the conditions and the family situation. It is a success catching anything. So we're happy, we're very happy with the trip. We've explored this place. Winding in at first light that morning proved difficult with the leads locking up in weed at range, so my return to home was delayed again. As I was trying to untangle a ball of weed and braid, the final rod left in the water registered another take.